conviction. And if Donald Trump collapses the global economy and we have, the whole world falling apart, which is going to happen, people tend to forget that all it takes is a couple days of missed meals. At what point in time do people start getting desperate? I mean, right now here, if power goes out today, all right, I got a refrigerator or freezer full of food. Power's out. I got a generator. I've got enough stuff. I can run my generator for a week. Then that's out. Well, I don't know. I'll cook the food. But the food's going to run out. I got some canned food, but it's going to run out. My dogs and cats keep looking at me, meowing and barking, saying, "Feed me, feed me." Well, Maverick may become lunch because I'll be desperate. I'll go to the store, but everybody else is going to the store. Now I'll drive to the store initially because I've got gasoline in my car, but eventually my car's going to go empty and there's no gas. So now I'm walking to the store. Everybody's coming to the store, raiding the store because it's not going to be so we're fighting over the food in the store, killing people there. There'll be bodies stacked up. I'll be coming home, but it's going to be a 7-mile walk home from the store. I can only carry so much food, and there'll be people ambushing me the entire way. So I'm going to start ambushing my neighbors, launching raids against their house and all that. But they're going to I have to fortify this is what society is going to become. Trust me, it's human nature. And then people are going to gather together in groups, and they'll have a common group, and it's not going to be about the Constitution, rule of law. It's going to be about survival, basic survival. And that's the United States. What happens to places that lack this infrastructure? Again, we just go to Africa. When food isn't produced, water isn't come out, people starve to death. And when they starve to death, things start to happen. They get desperate. You're going to get migrations. Now, the migration takes care of itself over time because, 1 million people start marching, but they don't have enough food. People start falling aside, dying, but you're still going to get a couple 100,000 showing up where they want to go, and they're going to be desperate. They got one shot. There's no reasoning with them. They're coming over the wall. They're coming in. They don't care. They're dying. They're dead if they don't do this. This is the world. This is what's going to happen this fall if this happens. If we run out of fertilizer, we run out of the ability to grow food. So this is stupid. This is stupidity on the part of Donald Trump. This is the irrationality of this man.
Because there are people, military analysts or generals, suggesting that the next step for Donald Trump would be some sort of escalation, maybe invasion of some of these islands in the Persian Gulf. We had General McKenzie, we had Wesley Clark, we had Keith Kellogg, all of them advocating for the same thing. And here is what Keith Kellogg said.
On President Trump to finish the job. What does that mean exactly, and what steps should he be taking to make sure this is not drawn out and that he can actually not have to take off the blockade, put it back on again, and be victorious in the end against the regime?
Yeah, when you look at it, the American people don't like tit for tat. You go in with half measures. They want to finish this job, completely finish it. And I think you can do it not just by kinetic action, which, we can bomb all the bridges we want or power plants we want, but it just hurts the Iranian people. What you can do, and I've said it repeatedly on air, is what you can do is take a couple of strategic targets. One, you can take Karg Island. That's 80% of their economy, 90% of it. And you control it like we control your house. I know that means boots on the ground and the strategic target, but it's defendable. The island's 16 miles offshore. You can then hold it. You can open up the strait. You can take the islands in the Strait of Hormuz as well with your marine amphibious groups out there. You can take Lanark Island. You can take Geisham Island. You can take them all to cut down basically their ability to basically interdict the Gulf and the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. And I think we can open the strait. I think we can escort those vehicles through, and that's the thing they're counting on, that they can continue to hold the Strait of Hormuz. I think once we break that deadlock and ships are moving, then I think their ability to influence the action is gone.
Yeah, here is part of the question is, Scott, because all of these attacks, if you look at the attacks, the targets in the southern part of Iran, in the western part of Iran, those people who are in favor of invasion or doing something underground, they're saying that the United States, the whole campaign is trying to diminish or reduce the Iranian capabilities in the southern and in the western parts. So as soon as they're not that powerful, the United States can do something in those regions. And here you've heard what General Keith Kellogg said. What is your take on that?
What a stupid man, a fundamentally ignorant man. We just start with logistics. Logistics drives everything. Iran will be operating off our interior lines of communications, and the United States will be operating off of exterior lines of communications. Our lines of communication, that means the ability to supply and sustain whatever we're doing, is thousands of miles long. Iran's is whatever it takes to get to whatever depot that exists in there. 16 miles, the separation. Well, I mean, last time I checked the range of Iranian missiles, that means they have a tremendous amount of depth, strategic depth, to allow them to continuous bombardment of this place. He throws around the terms like Marine Amphibious Ready Groups as if, wow, that means something. It's 2 battalion landing teams, 2 battalions. When we did amphibious assaults in World War II, we had Red Beach 1, Red Beach 2, Red Beach 3, Red being a regiment, 3 battalions online, and we have green and, move on. Regimental landing teams, part of a division going ashore. This is 1 battalion going in. Keith Kellogg would do well to study that which he talks about. The last time we tried to do a forcible entry by battalion on an island, Grenada, I guess you could say, oh, that was a success. Let's say an island that was defended by competent defenders was Koh Tang Island in May of 1975. And the battalion landing team that went across got beat. We landed. We secured 2 beachheads, 3 if you count one desperate beachhead that was temporarily there because a helicopter got shot down and the crew formed a perimeter, and that became a beachhead until they got evacuated. And then we had to evacuate the one because it was indefensible. The third one was about to get overrun. We had to evacuate them. We left 3 Marines behind who got captured and executed. That's like a great outcome compared to what could happen at Carg Island, where we could lose the entire battalion. And then what do we reinforce them with, Keith? Put the Marines on the ground. It's a battalion, Keith, 500, 600 Marines. We can reinforce them with it and get them up to 800 maybe. Then what? They're going to start to die, Keith. Where's the reserves? The second BLT? But I thought you said you want to take Carg Island and some other islands. Are you just going to generate battalion landing teams? Let's just create them out of thin air. Can't do that, Keith. That's not how it works. We got 2 right now. Now, you're going to bring in some paratroopers? Airborne! Geronimo! Jump out of the airplane and die. Let's say they land on the ground. At least the Marines come in with some sort of logistics sustainability. They have a logistics unit that is attached to the MU. Paratroopers, yay! They land on the ground. They got what they brought with them, which ain't much. They shoot through their basic load. What, you're going to bring in more stuff and drop it to them? But how can you if you're getting shot down? Let's go to Koh Tang Island. 8 out of the 11 helicopters that went in on the initial wave were either shot down, destroyed, or damaged so bad they couldn't be brought into action. 8 out of 11. What's Keith Kellogg talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking. Let me make it as clear as possible. If we could have taken Carg Island, we would have taken Carg Island. But we didn't take Carg Island because we can't take Carg Island. No matter how much Wesley Clark or Pete McKenzie or Keith Kellogg want to sit there and talk about drawing big arrows on the map, it ain't going to happen. If it could have happened, it would have happened. The other thing I want to talk about is just reality. We being the United States of America, don't have that much military force anymore. The day of generating 750,000 troops for Desert Storm, because that's what we generated to do Desert Storm, is over. The day of generating 250,000 troops for Operation Iraqi Freedom was called Operation Iraqi Liberation, but then people went, wait, that's oil. We're not fighting for oil. We'll fight for OIF. And so we did that. We can't do that. We don't have the force structure anymore. We struggle to get 5,000 soldiers ginned up to send to Europe as part of the rotational brigades. Our military isn't designed to be expeditionary in nature. We have some units that can do some expeditionary moves, but to get our military up to speed, we still have a situation where our divisions, I think it's 1/3 and sometimes more of our division are reserve or National Guard forces that have to be spun up, trained up, and then attached. There's a reason why in Desert Storm we didn't have any Army National Guard or Army Reserve units, brigade-sized forces fighting, because they couldn't get spun up. The Marines did, because we trained for that all the time. But now if we want to get people up, we're going to have to take a lot of time to get units mobilized, put together, trained up, and brought in. How do we deploy them? With what resources? Desert Storm, we flowed in troops by aircraft. They landed at permissive airfields. Just take a look at what's happening right now. Iran can shut down airfields. You really think we're just going to be flying in C-117 or C-17s in to discharge tens of thousands of troops on an airfield that's getting bombarded by missiles? No. So where do we land them? You have to land them further away, which means you now have to bring them closer. That's a logistical problem. You have to build up the logistics for this. But that's also susceptible to being attacked by Iranian forces. Ports. There's not going to be a port operating normally. First of all, half the ports we used were inside the Persian Gulf. You had to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get to those ports. That's not going to happen. The ports that we'll go into will be subjected to attacks. General Berger, the former Commandant of the Marine Corps, recognized this in 2019. I think when he issued his, it might have been after that, issued his Commandant's guidance that said we can't accomplish the missions given to us by the Secretary of Defense because we are married to a legacy system that is no longer sustainable given the realities of modern warfare. That we put all our Marines, all our eggs in one basket, the USS AAA or whatever, and we sail it towards the enemy shores. Now, normally we park it off, and then the Marines would disembark and land the landing team, and off they go, and they seize the beach. But now as they approach, they're not even going to get to the point where they start discharging their Amtraks. They're going to get hit by a missile, sunk, and we lose all the Marines. This is the reality. The reality is we can't do this. The last time Donald Trump thought about ginning up this kind of forces was in 2019 or 20, when the Global Hawk was shot down, the drone. And he said, I'm going to bomb those Iranian air defense systems. And the Pentagon went, you do that, and they're going to escalate by shelling them. What are you going to do? I'm going to do this. Then they're going to do this. They're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. No, sorry, sir, you can't take these. We don't have the force. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. That's sort of the funny thing. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. He said, what will it take to take? We're going to have to mobilize 190 to 250,000 troops. It's going to take 9 months to a year and a half to do that. Wow, maybe it's not worth it. We still have that problem. And then we're not just talking about the Strait, we're talking about an even bigger problem. So we'd have to mobilize 500,000 Americans to do this job. Keith Kellogg, how are we going to do that? Where are they coming from, Keith? Because I just do the math. We don't have them. And if we did that, it's the same problem with Taiwan. You know that there is no Taiwan contingency plan, op plan for Taiwan. At least there wasn't. What everybody said is when the time comes, we'll take the Korean contingency plan and sort of swap it over to Taiwan. What happens if North Korea decides to play games while you're playing games in Taiwan? All the forces allocated to go to Korea are playing the Taiwan game. There are no forces allocated. We'll swap them over from the European contingency plans. What happens if Russia decides to play ball now? We got nothing. What happens if Iran? See, we used to be able to fight 2.5 major wars. When I was in, we could fight 2.5 major wars. We could fight a major war in Europe, we could fight a major war in the Pacific, and we could do a holding action in the Middle East until we won one of those 2 wars, we diverted forces and do that. 2.5 wars. Very expensive to do that. Today, we can't fight 1 war. We can fight a half a war. That's it. We can fight a half a war. Because this isn't a war with Iran. This is a military action. It's warlike, but it's not a war. Because what are we doing? If there's a war, we're going to invade, occupy Iran. That's what we do at war. We defeat the enemy. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the resources to do that anywhere in the world. We are combat incapable because we have defined the world as our playing field. We say, this is our playing field. And we tell everybody, we have supremacy to fight you. Maybe we do, but we're proving we don't. With Iran, we certainly don't have supremacy. They're holding their own. But we can't do Iran at the same time we do something else. If something else were to kick up, we can't do it. If China decided today, which they won't, well, we're going to take Taiwan. We have zero capacity to defend. If North Korea came across the border, we can't do anything. We can't reinforce. We got nothing. Zero. And Keith Kellogg's talking about what? Putting some battalion landing teams on some islands that are going to die. And then what? And then what? These generals, they shouldn't be allowed on TV and carry the title general. Because when they say general, people go, oh, he's a general. He's smart. He knows. He's been there. He's done that. Keith Kellogg got a Silver Star, I think, running out and grabbing a wounded guy in Vietnam. Tells you everything you need to know about it. I'm not saying that he's not brave. Obviously, he was. But he's in Vietnam running out getting a wounded guy in a war that we lost. And now he's going to sit here and talk tough about winning a war if we just show the resolve. That's the problem with these generals with Vietnam pedigrees. They believe that we could have won if we just showed the resolve. They don't understand that we could never have won Vietnam because it was an unwinnable war, because we were on the wrong side of history, and we were trying to do things that couldn't be done militarily. War is an extension of politics by other means, but the politics is the most important component of it. And the politics of Vietnam sucked, and the politics of the Persian Gulf sucked. They shouldn't be allowed to say, I'm a general, because that, to the ignorant masses watching, they go, oh, the guy knows what he's talking about. I wish I could debate Keith Kellogg. I would run the field. I wish I could debate Wesley Clark. I'll debate all three of them together. Get McKenzie, Clark, and Keith Kellogg. There'll be a whole bunch of stars there, 4, 8. There's 10 stars. 10 stars against me, little major oak leaf clusters. I'll wipe their board because they are there to shape perception by telling lies. I'm here to tell the truth. The whole truth, nothing but the truth, however uncomfortable it's going to be. We can't do anything Keith Kellogg said we could do, and he knows it, but he's willing to sit there and lie to you because his job is to lie to you, because his job is to generate clicks and views. He's a media whore today. That's all he is. How much money you pay me to be on your show? You know?
Nothing.
None. You know how much money I make coming on your show? None. All right. He makes money every appearance he gives. His job is to make himself viable to go on shows and make money. These are media whores. These people aren't interested in telling the truth. They're just interested in getting their faces out there to create perceptions, to create storylines, narratives that allow them to continue to get their faces out there. Every single one of them is a liar.
Yeah. Scott, Donald Trump, Axios reported that Donald Trump supported Saudi Arabia's operation in Yemen because you know that the siege in Yemen was broken by Iranian airplane. Then Saudi Arabia hit the runway of the Sana'a International Airport, and Yemenis retaliated, attacking two, one of the air bases in Saudi Arabia and Abha International Airport. And the situation somehow escalated on that front. But how do you understand the behavior of Donald Trump as it was reported by Axios that he supported Saudi Arabia to do that? Because if they do something against Saudi Arabia with the oil facilities, which is so easy for Yemen to hit some targets in Aramco in Saudi Arabia, or hit the pipeline that goes to the Red Sea. So how can you put these two pictures together? On one side, you see the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump is mostly concerned about the oil market and the price of oil. On the other hand, he's supporting Saudi Arabia attack on Yemen, which could bring some sort of catastrophe to Saudi Arabia oil export.
Well, thank you for asking me to explain rationally the decisions of a madman. Except Donald Trump, I don't think, is a madman. I think there's something, the danger of doing shows like this. Let me just give you a little background. I'm a professional analyst. Professional means I make a living doing this. I've made a living doing this for several decades now. I used to be a professional military analyst. And then I was a professional United Nations analyst. But I've been doing this professionally for some time now. And I've done this during wartime. I've done this during long campaigns. I've done this, etc. The one thing you have to be careful about in doing analysis is you don't get married to a conclusion. Because what you know is that, while today I could make an assessment that's 100% correct today, if I'm married to that assessment next week as things change, that assessment will be off. You have to take a breath, take a step back, and evaluate, reevaluate, be willing to challenge things. I bought into the notion that this Iran conflict was the United States acting on behalf of Israel. And that's an easy one to get into because you have so many indicators, a Zionist controlled cabinet, the whole thing. But there are certain things there that that stand out. For instance, we know that even though with a Zionist controlled cabinet, the vast majority of Trump's advisors disagreed with Netanyahu's underlying reasoning for the war, that we could get regime change by bombing. I mean, I think most people said, yeah, we can kill Ali Khamenei, but that won't bring about regime change. Marco Rubio apparently pushed back on that. So did Mike Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, that this was probably going to have the opposite effect. Strait of Hormuz. Well, we know that the Pentagon straight up said you can't take the Strait of Hormuz in Donald Trump's first term. Pete Hegseth, of course, is the ultimate sycophant, and he said, I can do it. And I think Donald Trump went, oh, okay, cool. But I don't think Donald Trump believed it. I don't think Donald Trump believed that we were going to get regime change. Scott Bessent's the key here. Scott Bessent has it. Everybody's focused on Hegseth. I was focused on Hegseth. Everybody's focused on that. But I've refocused on Scott Bessent. Bessent has been playing the oil market game. Bessent wants to bring Russia to its knees. He said so. We want to break Russia, and we want to break Russia by preventing their ability to get oil to market. He wants to control access of oil to China, to control China. Oil is the key. The flow of oil is the key. Now, as I said earlier, all right, from the Chinese and Russian perspective, what do you need more than anything? I mean, the Russians have told me from day one that they seek predictability. They need to know what's going to happen. The Chinese are the same way. They do long-term economic planning. The Belts and Roads Initiative doesn't happen based upon knee-jerk reactions. It's based upon long-term planning, based upon if we do this, in 10 years we achieve this, in 20 years we achieve that. And it requires consistency in certain things, such as the availability of the flow of energy. And so they do their analysis and they see how energy flows and they create backup plans just in case you get a hiccup. But that's happened. What is Trump's approach? Well, I think it's to create chaos. I think Donald Trump's objective is chaos. We already heard him say that, we're going to change the way the world, when Saudi Arabia, the other thing people have to understand is that Donald Trump is, in his heart of hearts, a vindictive man. And if you remember when MBS said, we will replace the United States as the center of gravity. We will become the most important in the world because of our energy. That Donald Trump heard that. He said, nah, I've got the solution for you. Why don't you bomb Yemen? and Yemen bombs back. Now you have chaos. And see, this chaos is good for Trump because he can exploit the chaos to bring the pressure on China, on Russia, and to diminish Iran and the Gulf Arab states. Donald Trump's job is not to make the Gulf Arab states competitors of the United States in the global energy market. He's made that clear. He's bragged about how America is energy sufficient and that we produce enough energy to be able to take over gaps in the market. We're bragging about how we can supply energy to Europe. Once we start supplying energy to Europe, we've actually flipped the script because we always said Europe shouldn't be energy dependent upon Russia, but now we're making it energy dependent upon us, which is a good thing. That's the whole reason why we did Venezuela isn't because we cared about Nicolas Maduro. We cared about Venezuelan oil. That's it. And we cared about how much Venezuelan oil was going to China. And see, we pinched it. And then we told the Chinese, you can buy it, but you have to come through us, puts us in control. Scott Bessent's the key. And I think Scott Bessent is somebody who is in favor of chaos as a vehicle of policy. And what Donald Trump is doing is creating chaos in the global energy. Again, this is a man who doesn't have a moral compass because the chaos he's creating is going. I hate to say this, but I think hundreds of millions of people are going to die because of this war. There's no way to prevent it. I think there's going to be global catastrophe in certain areas of the world that we're not going to be able to get the food and water to them. When crops fail and you don't have backup, people are going to starve to death. And I just think we're looking at, over the course of the next decade, that hundreds of millions of people are going to die because of what Donald Trump's doing right now, this chaos here. But he believes that this is a price worth paying because we're not paying. It's like Madeleine Albright. Remember? 500,000 children. That's a price we're willing to pay. Well, you didn't pay the price, Madeline. Iraq paid it. Hundreds of millions of people are going to die, Donald. That's a price I'm willing to pay. Well, now he hasn't said that. This is my, but when every rational actor tells him what the consequences of this are, and he seems to shrug it off. But Scott Besson, I think, is the key here. So why would Donald Trump allow Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen? Because it creates chaos. I think Donald Trump wants the Bab el-Mandeb Straits closed because it creates chaos. He has made a calculation. Scott Besant has told him, we can ride out this crisis longer than China can. We can outlast China. It's not about outlasting Iran. We can outlast China, and China's going to put the pressure on Iran to give you a stake in the Strait of Hormuz solution or whatever. This is what I think is happening right now. So, because, you know, when you rationally look at the decision to get Saudi Arabia to engage Yemen, you're like, this is crazy. It's insane. Why would you encourage this? Well, the only answer is because it creates chaos. And then you say, well, why would you want to create chaos? And you look for the different actors around him who would benefit. And Scott Besson's theory of how America can leverage global energy markets for American to sustain American dominance. It's a theory predicated on control, and we only can achieve control through managed chaos.
Yeah. He said, we know that Donald Trump is trying to bring the Lebanese government and Israelis together. They had an agreement in Rome, and they're going to meet again next week. It seems that Donald Trump going to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. Then the day after, on Monday, with Benjamin Netanyahu. On Tuesday, he's going to meet with the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun. And here is what he said about Lebanon, Scott, and Syria.
Israeli ground forces withdraw from southern Lebanon?
Well, redeploy is another word, because, you know, we're getting along very well with Lebanon. Israel's dealing with them very nicely. First time in many, many years. Lebanon has just been beaten up so badly, and they've got Hezbollah there. Southern Syria and from parts of Lebanon, yeah, it would be good to get out, I think. And I think you might see things get a little bit calm.